I remember, and this is something I say over, and please be mindful of me, but I remember the first year I was married. Certain things happen when you get married, and you realize you're becoming part of a different family, and certain things just shock you. I remember my mother was the daughter of a Hasidic Rebbe. My Seder was Rabbi Spiegel, the Ostrov Kalshina Rebbe, the Heichus Badik, as well as all my uncles. And when she came as a Kala to the house of her chassan, who was the son of Rav Yaakov Zaytzach Tzadik Levracha, a Litvisher Rosh Hashiva. I mean, we're talking about the merger of two completely different worlds. My mother told me that she came back from Shabbos as a Kala, and she said to her father, Tata, ich gehe nicht warten mit dem Shidduch. It's off. He says, why? He says, Tata. She says, I came into the house Friday night, and they sat for Kiddush. Kiddush? Heilige Kiddush? Zucher ist ja immer Shabbos Lakatsche? Und wir gesetzt für Kiddush. I said, nicht Jiden. You're not Jewish. And my Zayda told her at that time, the Yidden, the Heilige Yidden, and there's many different types of Yidden, and we have to respect every Jew for who they are. When I became a chassid and I came to my in-laws' house for Pesach, we did yachatz. My father-in-law takes Zayin Gesund and Starker by Yehuda Olbaum, and his father's Yibad L'Chai and Moshe Yosef. So what happened? They took in, they put the thing, the Afikoim in, they hid it in a tash, and all of a sudden, all the kids, I married the oldest, so here we had the whole slew of them, and Zaydi Olbaum stands up, and he throws it over his shoulder, and he starts marching. We're going out of Mitzrayim, we're going, and all the kids are following him as if they're going out of Mitzrayim. I mean, talk about a memory, talk about something that a child will always fondly remember and pass on to their children. It's shtick. My father never did that. He sat for Kiddush, but he didn't go out of Mitzrayim. but think about it, that's something that says, Ki'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. We're going out of Mitzrayim. And there's nothing like, telling it is not enough. Telling it alone is not enough. There's a story that I always say over to the children that I think it's the most profound, it can make the most profound impact on what it means to really, really reenact and relive an experience. The story is told about Napoleon. That Napoleon, at one time, the emperor, the most powerful leader in the world, there was once a coup attempt to overthrow the government. And the rebels had taken over the palace and marched in, and he had to run for his life. This emperor had to run for his life, and he was running to the forest through a secret tunnel, and he was out into the field, and he was running, and he was battered and tattered. And he comes out into the field, and he notices there's a hut, a house, a farmhouse, and he knocks on the door, and there a Yid opens up, and he sees the king in front of him, and he says, Your Highness, please, give me a place to hide. The rebels, and you hear them running in the background, you hear them chasing and screaming, and the battle cries. He says, okay, fine, I have to say my, and he put him under the bed in the back room, 2 rooms, and he put him back under the bed, and he stuffed hay underneath, and he hid him in. Not two minutes later came in these rebels with their bayonets, and they said, Jew, where is that king? We saw him coming in this direction. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Finally, they said, go to that room. Came to that room. Came to the back room, and there was the bed. And they start poking with the bayonet underneath at the hay. And he's jumping. So finally, just at that moment, one of the other rebels says, we think we saw him going in the other direction. And they said, Jew, you're lucky that the king is not here, because you would have been dead if we would have found him there. And they went running. And it wasn't too much later that the coup was overthrown, and the king restored his sovereignty. And about 2 months later, this Jew gets summoned to the king's palace and said, didn't know what did I do wrong? What happened? He's summoned to the palace with his family. He walks in, and there are all of the cabinet members and all of the loyal people to the emperor, and they say to him, what did I do wrong? The emperor stands up and says, Jew, Yankel Jew, Yaakov the Jew, I'm telling you that you saved my life. I want to give you, in front of all of my subjects, the opportunity to ask for anything that you want as a reward for saving my life. You hid me under the bed, you risked your life, and now is the time to be repaid. The Jew was worried, the Jew was nervous, the Jew didn't know what to ask for, was flustered, and said, you know what I'd really like to know? I'd really like as a gift. Perhaps your Highness could tell me what it felt like when you were under the bed. What were you thinking? What were you feeling at that time? At that moment, the emperor stood up in a rage. You filthy, dirty Jew! I give you the opportunity to get any of my treasures, to become one of my ministers. And that's what you asked, to embarrass me in front of all of my subjects? To know how I felt when I was under the bed? Not knowing whether my life was going to continue? Not knowing whether I had a moment left to live? Experiencing the pain and trauma of having my life in the balance? That's what you asked for? Guards, take him away! And you will die for your insubordination. You will die for that rebellious attitude and action. Like, Your Highness, you told me I could ask for anything, but that's not something that you asked for. You have to have enough intelligence to know what to ask for. And in 3 days, at the stroke of noon, you will die by firing squad. Sure enough, the entire community was up in arms, and they were saying Tehillim, and they were trying to get into the cabinet members and to speak to the most influential people to break this decree. And the day came, and it was 11:45, and the king says, I will not budge on this. I had one rebellion and one embarrassment for my kingdom, and the Jew, how dare he, asks me how I felt when I was under that bed. And it's 11:45. It's 11:50. And the entire capital city was invited to witness this execution. And a big stand was built, and a big podium, and high up. And the marksmen were all around with their guns pointing at the defendant. And at 11:02, the crier, the announcer, gets up and says, in 2 minutes, Yaakov the Jew will die. And he will die for embarrassing the king. He had the opportunity to ask for anything, and he asked how the king felt when he was under the bed. That deserves death. And the clock is ticking, and the Jew is saying Vidui, and he's shivering, and everybody's crying. And the king then says, it's 10 seconds to 12. Ready! Aim! And the clock strikes 12. And the king turns around and says, stop! Don't shoot! He looks at the Jew and he says, that's how I felt when I was under the bed. It looks like a lot of you knew that story. But you know something? I always love telling it over again. Blanche, you never knew that story, huh?
Shook me up.
Because you know something? That's the mitzvah of Sipri Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's what it means. It says you have to make it like you're really going out of Mitzrayim. Because it's one thing that the king could have told him how I felt. I felt nervous. I felt shy. I was worried. So was I. Okay, but I remember that before. I'm sorry. But the whole city. But you know something? You asked me for something. I gave you that opportunity for anything. And if you asked me how I felt, I was going to do it the way a king does it. I'm going to make you know how I felt. And that's what we have to tell our children, because this is the night that we became the Bnei Yisrael. This is the night that we became the Am Segula. This is the night of Pesach, when we became Hashem's special chosen nation, and we're so special to Hashem, and you, my dear child, are so special to me, and to Abba, and to Daddy, and to our grandparents, and we're also special to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and that's why we're doing all this, and that's why this Pesach, that's why this matzah, that's why this myrrh, and that's why we have to realize that this Yetzer Hara can catch us in a whim, in one small moment, in one small second, and listen to my story once upon a time, and gather them around and hug them around and use that opportunity to build that relationship just as a teacher does to a child. To take that and utilize it for the ultimate teaching experience. B'shinantam levanecha. The mitzvah is to teach it to your children. The mitzvah is to have your children and yourselves relive it. And in mitzvah, if we will relive it and we will experience it exactly as much as we're able to reenact it, then our children will pass that on to their children. And that will be another chain in the eternity of Klal Yisrael. And that chain, from father to son, from mother to daughter, father to sons and daughters, and mothers to sons and daughters, but that link of generations from where we started will Mitzvah Shem end with greeting Mashiach. There'll be the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, when we'll stand tall and proud for the entire world to see. V'haya Hashem l'melech al kol haaretz. Kadosh Baruch Hu will be recognized. The Bnei Yisrael's identity as the Am HaNivchar will be recognized, appreciated, and respected by all. Mitzvah Hashem with the Geulah Shleima.